At the end of the 1940s, there was a very clear paradox in American engineering thinking. Steel symbolized strength, wood represented centuries of tradition, and plastic, or more precisely fiberglass, was seen only as a toy, a cheap material, something no one would dare trust with human life. The idea of building boats or cars out of plastic was often mocked in machine shops and harbors alike, but history always begins with those who are ridiculed. While most of America remained loyal to metal and wood, Glasspar L quietly opened a new door. A world where vehicles were no longer limited by weight, rot, or maintenance costs. Almost by accident, they gave birth to an entirely new era, the fiberglass age. And today, we turn back time from hand-laid molds heavy with the smell of resin to massive factories and shareholder boardrooms to understand how the king of fiberglass could come to dominate an entire industry only to collapse at the very peak of the wave. After World War II, America entered a strange period of surplus, not scarcity, but abundance, especially of materials once dedicated to warfare. Resin and fiberglass, formerly used to house radar systems, bomber noses, and aviation components, now sat idle in warehouses with no enemy left to fight. To most of industry, they were merely excess supplies. But to one man named Bill Tritt, they were the future. Tritt was not a businessman in the traditional sense. He was a marine designer who had worked in aviation where lightweight and durability were not options. They were conditions for survival. The war taught him that new materials could achieve things wood and metal never could. And then he returned to his true passion, boats. Tritt grew increasingly frustrated with wooden boats. They were heavy, prone to rot, demanded constant maintenance, and relied too heavily on traditional craftsmanship. He believed that post-war America, with a rapidly growing middle class, needed a new kind of recreational vehicle, lighter, more durable, easier to manufacture. In 1947, he introduced a boat called Green Dolphin. Nearly 20 ft long with a hull made entirely of fiberglass, it astonished engineers of the time. Not just because of its smooth, seamless form, but because of what it represented, a boat that did not absorb water, did not rot, and did not need repainting every season. 3 years later, in 1950, Glasspower was officially founded in Santa Ana, California. The company's mission sounded almost reckless to glassify every form of transportation on the water and beyond. Glasspar did not see fiberglass as a replacement material. They saw it as a foundation, and the connection to automobiles came to Bildred quite naturally. A friend, amateur racer Kenneth Brooks, approached him with what seemed like a simple request, a very light body, compact enough to fit on a Willys chassis. The result was the Glasspar G2, a car unlike anything America had ever seen. In design, the Glasspar G2 carried the spirit of a European roadster reinterpreted through the lens of post-war California. The body sat low with smooth integrated curves and no stamped creases like steel cars. Tritt employed the female mold technique, allowing for a seamless, precise, and repeatable surface, something hand-formed metal bodies struggled to achieve at the time. The result was astonishing. The entire body weighed only about 185 lbs, far lighter than any roadster of its era. The chassis was typically sourced from a Willys Jeep or similar custom platforms, reducing costs and taking advantage of readily available components. The suspension setup was straightforward. Independent front suspension and a solid rear axle. Classic early 1950s American sports car engineering. Nothing complicated, but easy to repair and reliably tough. As for engines, the Glasspar G2 was not tied to a single configuration. Kit buyers could choose anything from Willys 4-cylinder engines to Ford or Chevrolet inline sixes. With a body weighing just 185 lbs, The G2 achieved an impressive power-to-weight ratio, delivering quick acceleration even with modest horsepower. The interior was extremely minimal. Round metal gauges, a small steering wheel, thin vinyl-covered seats, no excess comfort. Everything served the driving experience. In 1951, the G2 appeared at Motorama, creating a quiet shock. Engineers from General Motors and Ford Motor Company stood still before an uncomfortable question. If a small shop in California could do this, what was stopping them? Years later, Zora Arkus Dunto would indirectly acknowledge that the G2's material philosophy helped pave the way for the Chevrolet Corvette. To prove durability, Glasspar partnered with Noratuck Chemical on a bold promotional campaign called Olympic Eye. The car traveled across America. At fairs, harbors, and exhibitions, crowds witnessed something unprecedented. Demonstrators swinging sledgehammers directly into the fiberglass body in front of spectators. No dents, no cracks, no shattering. What many had dismissed as a toy suddenly revealed itself as a formidable structural material. Yet, the G2 was never produced as a mass-market car. High mold costs, slow resin curing times, and limited production capacity forced Glasser to sell the G2 only as a kit car. And after making a sound loud enough to be heard in the automotive world, Glasspar made a decision no one expected. They walked away from the dream of cars, not because they had failed, but because Bill Tritt saw a much larger wave forming on the water. By the late 1950s, the company poured all of its energy into fiberglass boats, and the greatest symbol of this era was the Glasspar G3. In terms of design, the Glasspar G3 was a major leap forward compared to every recreational boat of its time. Its most distinctive feature was the sponsons, two raised shoulders running along each side of the hull. More than just a visual signature, this structure increased lateral stability, allowing the G3 to skim across the water at high speeds while remaining balanced with far less chine hopping. A common floor of flat-bottom wooden boats. The hull was molded as a single fiberglass piece, thin yet rigid, and significantly lighter than wooden boats of similar size. Thanks to its low weight, the G3 responded quickly to steering inputs and was easy to control, even for less experienced drivers. The cockpit was simple but logical. A large steering wheel, easy to read round mechanical gauges, and a layout that embodied a clear driver-first philosophy. As for power, the Glasspar G3 primarily used popular outboard engines from Mercury, or Evinrude, producing between 40 and over 70 horsepower. Enough to turn an afternoon on the lake into a thrilling experience. This was precisely why the G3 became a must-have boat for young Americans entering the 1960s. And alongside it, Glasspar introduced two model lines aimed squarely at family comfort. The first was the Glasspass Seafair. This was not a boat designed for weekend races, but for picnics, summer vacations, and children discovering for the first time the smell of lake water mixed with gasoline. In design, the Seafair carried a distinctly cinematic style. Its seamless curved windshield, a rare feature in the late 1950s, not only deflected wind, but also conveyed a modern, refined feel, closer to an automobile cabin than a traditional boat. The hull was low and wide, prioritizing stability and space over top speed. The cockpit was arranged like a lounge, long bench seats, thick cushions, and enough room for the entire family. Every detail was focused on comfort and ease of use, true to the idea that once you're on the boat, you're on vacation. In terms of power, the Glasspar Seafair was typically paired with Mercury or Johnson outboard engines in the moderate range from 35 to 60 horsepower. Not overly powerful, but smooth, efficient, and easy to maintain. Qualities American fathers deeply appreciated. Next came the Glasspar Avalon, a more refined version of the same dream. In its styling, the Avalon featured softer lines and a distinctly automotive character. The hull was long and low with flowing curves paired with a curved windshield that wrapped around the cockpit, a detail reminiscent of late 1950s American sedans. Paint colors were usually light pastels, aqua, cream, or soft red, hues closely associated with the optimism of post-war America. The interior was more carefully finished than the Seafarers. Thicker seats, higher backrests, and a layout focused on relaxation rather than activity. This was a boat for quiet afternoons for middle-aged couples drifting slowly across the lake. The Avalon was typically paired with mid-range outboard engines, prioritizing smoothness and stability. It made no attempt to impress with speed. Its appeal lay in the feeling that everything is enough, beautiful enough, durable enough to simply enjoy. Production scale exploded to meet the booming demand of the recreational boating market. Glasser expanded its manufacturing network across multiple states. A plant in Nashville, Tennessee, serving the Midwest, Olympia, Washington, covering the West Coast and Pacific Northwest, and facilities in Virginia, supplying the East Coast. According to industry estimates, at its peak between 1958 and 1960, Glasspar sold thousands of boats each year, with annual revenues reaching $12 million US, a massive figure for the recreational boating industry at the time. More importantly, the company controlled over 30% of the fiberglass boat market in the United States, far surpassing many smaller competitors still struggling with traditional hand-built methods. But what Glass sold was not just boats. It was the Glasspar life, family vacations, the scent of gasoline mixed with lake water, and the feeling that America itself was moving forward. As sales were accelerating rapidly, Glasspar Company's leadership made a pivotal decision to go public in order to raise capital and expand even faster. To Wall Street, Glasspar was a growth dream. To the company's founders, it was a double-edged sword. Short-term profit pressure began to weigh on every decision. Costs were scrutinized. Production timelines were shortened. And most importantly, Bill Tritt's craftsman philosophy no longer aligned with corporate management thinking. Conflict was inevitable. In December 1960, Bill Tritt left the very company he had built, and Glasspar lost not just a designer, but the soul of the entire brand. At the same time, the fiberglass boat industry entered a phase of fierce competition. New rivals adopted chopper gun technology, fast, cheap spraying of fiberglass and resin that dramatically reduced costs. Glasspar, long accustomed to high-quality hand-laid molding processes, began to fall behind in the race on price. In 1966, Glasspar was forced to merge with Larson Boats. On paper, it was a strategic partnership to sustain production. In reality, it marked the end of Glasspar as an independent brand. The name gradually became a subsidiary under Americana Corporation, where output was prioritized over design and volume over identity. Quality began to decline. The lines that once defined Glasspar's reputation were simplified away. Consumers noticed the difference, and they turned away. By the late 1960s, economic shocks, rising oil prices, and shifting American leisure habits slowed the boating market. Factories closed one by one. The Glasspar name was fragmented, sold off, and ultimately faded into silence. The death of Glasspar is often told as a failure, but looked at more closely, it was the tragedy of being ahead of its time. Glasspar did not collapse because its products became obsolete. It collapsed because it arrived too early. It laid the foundation for an industry that financial corporations would later step into, and Harvest placed two comparisons on the scale: Glasspar G2 and the Chevrolet Corvette. The G2 came first, proving that a fiberglass car body was possible. The Corvette arrived later, backed by General Motors with deep capital, industrial production lines, and a nationwide distribution network. The G2 opened the door. The Corvette walked through it and stayed. Who survived? The Corvette, who is remembered as the pioneer, the G2. On the water, the story repeats itself. The Glasspar G3 delivered speed, form, and style to an entire generation. But Boston, where with its industrial production philosophy, sharp marketing, and durable financial structure became the name that endured. The G3 taught Americans to love fiberglass boats. Boston, where taught the market how to sell them for decades.